My husband died on a rainy Tuesday. That's how I always remember it. Not by the date, not by the hospital room or the doctor's voice. Just the rain. Cold, heavy rain that soaked through my shoes as I stood outside the emergency entrance, staring at the automatic doors like they might open again and give him back to me. But they never did. 5 years ago, I became a widow at 32. And 5 years ago, I made a promise that would quietly ruin my life, one payment at a time. His name was Daniel. Gentle, careful. The kind of man who apologized when other people bumped into him. He worked long hours, saved every receipt, and believed deeply in doing the right thing, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. We didn't have children yet. We were waiting. 1 more year, he used to say. Let's be stable first. Then one morning, he kissed my forehead, grabbed his jacket, and never came home. The doctors called it sudden cardiac failure. No warning, no second chances. At the funeral, I barely remember the faces. Everything felt distant, like I was underwater. People hugged me. People cried. People said things like, he's in a better place, and you're so strong. I wasn't strong. I was numb. That was when his mother pulled me aside. Margaret, she looked smaller than I remembered. Her hands shook as she held mine, squeezing them like she was afraid I'd disappear too. Daniel told me everything, she whispered. About the debt. I froze. What debt? I asked. She looked surprised, then embarrassed, then sad. He didn't tell you? She said softly. The loan. The one he took out for us when his father got sick. We still owe so much. And now he's gone. Her voice cracked. Tears filled her eyes. Behind her stood Daniel's father, staring at the floor. Silent. Ashamed. In that moment, my grief twisted into guilt. Daniel had always protected me from stress, from money worries, from family burdens. And now he was gone, and I was standing there, learning about something he'd carried alone. I'll take care of it, I heard myself say. I didn't plan it. I didn't calculate it. I didn't even ask how much was left. I just said it. Margaret cried harder. She hugged me. She called me an angel. And just like that, I became responsible for a debt that wasn't mine. A week later, she called. We worked it out, she said. If you could send just $200 a month, it would help us keep up with the payments. Daniel would have wanted that. Daniel would have wanted that. Those words became a leash around my neck, so I said yes. Every month, on the same day, I sent $200. No questions, no delays, even when money was tight, even when I had to skip things for myself. At first, it felt like honoring him, like staying connected, like love. The first year was the hardest. I cried after every transfer. Sometimes I whispered apologies to him while I clicked send. The second year, it became routine. The third year, it became a burden. The fourth year, it became suspicious because nothing ever changed. No updates, no progress, no gratitude anymore. Just the same message every single month. Thank you. God bless you. That was it. I asked once gently how much was left. Margaret replied, still a long way to go, dear. These things take time. Something about that answer sat wrong with me. Daniel had been organized, precise. He would have known exactly how much was owed. But I ignored the feeling, because questioning it felt like betraying him. Until the 5th year. By then, I had moved to a quieter neighborhood. Small houses, friendly faces, people who noticed things. That's when I met Mrs. Alvarez. She lived next door. Late 60s, sharp eyes, always outside watering her plants or sweeping the porch. One afternoon, she waved me over. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Do you still send money to your in-laws? I laughed awkwardly. Yes, every month. Her expression changed, from curious to concerned. Why? She asked. I frowned. Because of a debt my husband left behind. She shook her head slowly. Honey, she said, I don't think that's true. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? She glanced around, then leaned closer. I didn't want to interfere, but I see them all the time. See who? Your husband's parents, she said. They come and go. New car, renovations, packages, deliveries. My heart began to race. That doesn't mean anything, I said quickly. Mrs. Alvarez sighed. I also see them arguing, she added. About money. About you. That night I didn't sleep. Memories replayed differently. Margaret's vague answers. The unchanged story. The way she stopped thanking me. Still, I tried to be rational. Maybe they had other income. Maybe the debt was larger than I imagined. until Mrs. Alvarez said the words that changed everything. "Have you ever checked the camera?" I stared at her. "What camera?" She pointed toward the street. "The security camera across from their house. My nephew installed it last year. It records everything." My throat went dry. "What are you saying?" I whispered. She met my eyes. "I'm saying, you should stop sending money." I went home shaking. That night, I opened my banking app and stared at the scheduled transfer. $200, like a heartbeat. Regular, relentless. I thought of Daniel, of his kindness, of how easily he trusted people he loved. And for the first time in 5 years, I wondered, what if I wasn't honoring him? What if I was being used? The transfer went through the next morning, but something inside me broke. I decided that would be the last one, because the next step wasn't sending money. It was watching the footage. And once I did, nothing would ever be the same. I didn't tell anyone what I was about to do. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even Mrs. Alvarez, because deep down I was afraid of what I might find. The next morning, I called Margaret. "Hi, dear," she said warmly. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," I replied, forcing calm into my voice. "I just wanted to check in. How are you and Dad doing?" "Oh, we're managing," she said. "Barely. Things are still very tight." There it was again. Still tight. 5 years, 60 payments, $12,000. Still tight. "I understand," I said softly. "I'll keep doing what I can." She sighed dramatically. "Daniel would be proud of you." When the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time. That sentence didn't comfort me anymore. It haunted me. That afternoon, I walked back to Mrs. Alvarez's house. She was on her porch, folding laundry into a basket. "I'd like to see it," I said. She didn't ask what I meant. She just nodded. "Come inside." Her living room smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Family photos lined the walls. Birthdays, graduations, weddings. Real memories, honest ones. She led me to a small desk in the corner where a computer sat, already turned on. "My nephew manages the camera system," she explained. "But I have access to the recordings. It faces the street and part of their driveway." My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "What exactly does it show?" I asked. "Enough," she replied. She clicked a few keys, then turned the screen toward me. "Tell me the dates you usually send money." "The first of every month," I said automatically. She nodded and pulled up the files. January, February, March. Each video thumbnail showed a familiar scene. My in-laws' house. Their driveway. Their front door. At first, nothing seemed strange. Cars coming and going. People walking in and out. Then she pressed play on one clip. It was dated March 2nd, the day after I sent the money. I watched Margaret step outside, phone in hand, smiling. Not a tired smile. Not a stressed smile. A happy one. She waved to someone off camera. Then a man walked into view. He was carrying a flat-screen TV. Brand new. Still in the box. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Alvarez didn't say a word. She just let the footage continue. Another clip. April 3rd. A delivery truck pulled up. 2 men unloaded furniture, outdoor patio chairs, cushions still wrapped in plastic. Margaret clapped her hands like a child on Christmas morning. Daniel's father stood nearby laughing. Laughing. I felt heat rush to my face. "No," I whispered. "This doesn't mean anything. Maybe someone gifted it." Mrs. Alvarez clicked to the next file. May 2nd. A shiny black sedan pulled into the driveway. Not the old dented car Daniel used to drive. A new one. Margaret ran her hand along the hood, pride written all over her face. Daniel's father opened the driver's door and sat inside. I watched him adjust the seat. Then I watched him smile. My vision blurred. "Still doesn't prove the debt is gone," I said weakly. Maybe they needed a reliable car." Mrs. Alvarez leaned forward and paused the video. "Honey," she said gently, "watch this next part." She opened a clip from June. Margaret stood outside with a neighbor I recognized from old family gatherings. I couldn't hear the audio, but their body language told a story. Margaret leaned in, speaking animatedly. The neighbor's eyes widened. Margaret laughed. Then she made a gesture, rubbing her fingers together. "Money." She pointed toward her house. Then she shrugged. The neighbor shook her head in disbelief. Margaret laughed again. I felt sick. My hands trembled as I reached for the edge of the desk. This could be taken out of context," I said. But even as I said it, I knew the truth was already there. I just hadn't accepted it yet. Mrs. Alvarez opened one final clip. This one was from last month. Margaret and Daniel's father were sitting on the porch. Between them was a stack of papers. Margaret picked one up and tapped it proudly. Then she pointed toward the street, toward my old house, toward me. Daniel's father shook his head, smiling. Margaret rolled her eyes and waved her hand dismissively, as if to say, "She doesn't know." I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "I need a copy of these," I said. Mrs. Alvarez hesitated. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "Yes," I replied. My voice was steady now. Too steady. "I need to." She handed me a flash drive. "Be careful," she said. "People don't like it when the truth threatens their comfort." I drove home in silence. That night, I watched everything again, alone. I replayed each clip, paused, zoomed in, counted the months, counted the purchases, did the math. There was no debt, not anymore. Maybe there never had been. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the wall until sunrise, and then I made a decision. I wouldn't confront them yet. Not angry, not emotional. I wanted something stronger. I wanted proof they couldn't talk their way out of. So the next month, I sent the money again. $200, on purpose, and this time I watched closely. 2 days later, a contractor's van pulled up. They renovated the kitchen. Granite countertops, new cabinets. I took screenshots, saved clips, labeled files. I became meticulous, like Daniel used to be. Over the next 3 months, I documented everything. A vacation, new clothes, a backyard makeover, all while Margaret sent me messages like, "Thank you for your kindness. God will reward you." We're still struggling. Each message felt like a slap. Finally, I called her. "Margaret," I said calmly, "can we talk?" "Of course, dear," she replied sweetly. "I was reviewing my finances," I continued, "and I realized I never saw any official paperwork for the debt." Silence. Then she laughed lightly. "Oh, you know how complicated these things are." "I'd still like to see it," I said. Another pause. "Well, I'll have to look for it." "No rush," I replied. "Just send it when you find it." She never did. Instead, 2 days later, she called me crying. "Why are you questioning us?" She sobbed. "Do you think we're lying to you?" My grip tightened on the phone. "No," I said. "I just want transparency." "We're family," she said sharply. "Daniel trusted us." There it was again. Using him, using his name. I ended the call politely, but inside something hardened. I wasn't the grieving widow anymore. I was a witness, and I had evidence. The next step wasn't watching. It was confronting, but not privately, not quietly, because I didn't just want the truth. I wanted accountability. And when I finally showed them what I had, they wouldn't be able to deny it. I didn't rush into it. That surprised even me. Old me would have driven straight to their house, phone in hand, heart racing, demanding answers through tears. But grief had already taught me one thing: acting on emotion only ever left me empty. So instead, I planned, carefully, quietly. I requested a day off work and chose a Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where people feel safe, relaxed, unguarded. I dressed simply. Neutral colors, calm face, no makeup except enough to hide how tired I was. I brought a folder. Inside it, printed screenshots, dates highlighted, timestamps circled. I also had the flash drive in my bag, heavy as a secret. Before leaving, I stood in front of the mirror. "I'm doing this for you," I whispered. I wasn't sure if I meant Daniel or myself. Their house looked different now. Brighter, cleaner, more expensive. The new car sat proudly in the driveway. Wind chimes hung near the door. Fresh plants lined the walkway. 5 years of my money. Margaret opened the door with a smile that faltered the second she saw my face. "Oh," she said. "You should have called." "I wanted to surprise you," I replied gently. She stepped aside. "Come in, dear." Daniel's father was in the living room, watching TV. He muted it when he saw me and stood up awkwardly. "You look well," he said. I nodded. "So do you." Margaret gestured for me to sit. "Tea?" "No, thank you," I said, placing my bag carefully at my feet. We made small talk, weather, neighbors, nothing that mattered. Then I said, "I've been thinking a lot about Daniel lately." Margaret's face softened instantly. "Oh, we miss him every day." "I know," I said. "That's why I wanted to talk about the debt." The room shifted. Daniel's father cleared his throat. Margaret clasped her hands. "What about it, dear?" "I just want clarity," I said calmly. 5 years is a long time. I thought maybe we could review how much is left." She sighed. "We've explained this." "I know," I interrupted softly, "but I realized I've never seen any documents." Her eyes flicked to her husband. Well, those papers are old, she said. Hard to find. I understand, I said. That's why I did some looking myself. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. Margaret froze. I placed the first photo on the table. The TV delivery. Her lips parted slightly. This is your house, I said. March 2nd, the day after I sent the payment. That, she stammered. That was a gift. I nodded and slid the next photo forward. The patio furniture. April. Another excuse rose to her lips, but I didn't let her speak. The car, the kitchen renovation, the vacation photos, screenshots from a neighbor's social media, smiling faces on a beach they'd never mentioned. Silence swallowed the room. Daniel's father sat back down heavily. Margaret's hands trembled. You've been spying on us? She snapped. No, I replied evenly. I've been watching the truth. Her expression hardened. You don't understand how hard it's been for us, she said sharply. We lost our son. So did I said. The words cut deeper than I expected. She blinked. You think money replaces him? She continued angrily. You think a few comforts mean we aren't suffering? I think, I said quietly, that you lied to me. She stood up. How dare you accuse us after everything we've been through? I reached into my bag again and pulled out the flash drive. This, I said, placing it on the table, contains video footage. Month by month, purchase by purchase. Daniel's father stared at it like it might explode. Margaret's voice dropped. You wouldn't. I already did, I said. Her face crumpled. Then, suddenly, she started crying. Real tears, loud, desperate. I didn't know how to stop, she sobbed. It just kept coming, and you never asked questions. You were so willing. You thought I wouldn't notice, I said. She shook her head. We thought it was what Daniel would have wanted. That was it. That sentence snapped something inside me. Don't, I said firmly. Don't use his name. She looked up at me, shocked. He trusted you, I continued. He protected me from this. And after he died, you turned his kindness into a tool. Daniel's father finally spoke. We were scared, he said quietly. After he passed, we didn't know how we'd manage. And when she offered to help, we let it continue. For 5 years, I asked. He looked away. Margaret wiped her face. You don't need the money like we do, she said bitterly. You're young. You have your whole life. I stood up. You're right, I said. I do. I picked up the folder. This stops today, I said calmly. No more payments, ever. Her eyes widened. You can't just... I can, I said. And I am. She stood again, panic replacing anger. You'll ruin us, she whispered. I met her gaze. You ruined yourselves. I walked toward the door. Wait, she called out. Please, don't tell anyone. I paused. I didn't come here to humiliate you, I said. I came for the truth. She nodded rapidly. We'll return the money slowly. I turned back. No, I said. You won't. They stared at me. You'll sign an agreement acknowledging there is no remaining debt. I continued. You'll stop contacting me for money, and you'll never use Daniel's name to manipulate me again. And if we don't? She asked quietly. I held up the flash drive. Then everyone sees what I saw. Long silence. Finally, Daniel's father nodded. We'll do it. I left without another word. Outside, the air felt lighter, but I wasn't finished, because walking away wasn't enough anymore. They had taken 5 years of my life, my grief, my trust, my silence, and I had one final decision to make, whether to disappear quietly or make sure this never happened to anyone else. I thought I would feel victorious when I drove away. Relief, maybe, closure, some dramatic rush of justice. Instead, I felt hollow. 5 years of my life had just collapsed into a single afternoon. 5 years of believing I was honoring my husband. 5 years of sacrifice built on a lie. That night, I sat alone in my living room. Lights off, the city glowing faintly through the window. Daniel's photo sat on the shelf across from me. Same gentle smile, same calm eyes. I didn't fail you, I whispered. I finally listened. The next morning, the messages started. Margaret called first. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Please, we're scared. We'll do whatever you asked. You don't understand what this will do to us. I blocked her, not out of anger, out of peace. A week later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a signed statement. No debt, no obligation, no future financial support. I read it 3 times, just to make sure my eyes weren't lying. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I canceled the scheduled payment. For the first time since Daniel died, the first of the month came and went, without that familiar ache in my chest. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't, because truth has a way of spreading, even when you don't push it. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Alvarez knocked on my door. "You might want to sit down," she said. Apparently, Margaret had talked, not to apologize, to complain. She told relatives that I had abandoned them, that I was cold, that I had turned my back on family. But people asked questions. Questions Margaret didn't expect. Why did you need money for so long? What happened to the debt? Why did you suddenly stop? And then someone remembered the new car. Someone else mentioned the renovations. Another neighbor brought up the vacation photos. The story unraveled. I never posted the footage. I never shared the files. I didn't have to. The truth stood on its own. Within a month, family gatherings became tense. Invitations stopped coming. People whispered. People distanced themselves. Margaret called again, from a different number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice sounded smaller this time. "We didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "People are judging us." I deleted the message. For once, their discomfort wasn't my responsibility. What surprised me most wasn't losing them. It was what I gained. With an extra $200 every month, my life slowly changed. I started therapy, real therapy. Not the kind where you smile and say you're fine. I talked about the guilt, the pressure, the way Daniel's kindness had been weaponized against me. My therapist said something that stuck. "You didn't just lose your husband," she said. "You lost your right to say no." That hit hard, so I practiced saying it. No to extra shifts, no to emotional manipulation, no to people who only showed up when they needed something, and yes to myself. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes, I found Daniel's notebook. I hadn't opened it since his death. Inside were lists, budgets, plans, and then, tucked between 2 pages, a folded note. My hands shook as I opened it. "If anything ever happens to me, I want you to know this. You owe no one your pain, not my parents, not the world. Your kindness is not a debt." I cried then, not the quiet tears I'd grown used to, the deep ones, the releasing kind. It felt like he was finally speaking directly to me. 6 months later, I ran into Daniel's father at the grocery store. He looked older, smaller. We stood there awkwardly between the produce aisle and the checkout. "I wanted to say," he began, then stopped. "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I hope you are." He hesitated. "We should have stopped it long ago." "Yes," I said simply. There was nothing else to add. As I walked away, I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means letting go. On the anniversary of Daniel's death, I visited his grave. I brought flowers, sat on the grass, talked to him like I used to. "I finally learned," I said softly. "Love doesn't mean sacrifice without limits." The wind rustled the trees, gentle and warm. For the first time in years, I felt steady. Not broken, not bitter, just whole. Now, when people ask me why I stopped helping my in-laws, I don't explain. I don't defend. I don't relive it. I simply say, because I was done being used. And if there's one thing I hope anyone watching this understands, it's this. Kindness should never cost you your peace. Love should never demand silence. And grief should never be exploited. If someone tells you they would have wanted this, but it hurts you every single time, stop. Ask questions. Watch closely. Because sometimes the truth is right there, waiting for you to finally look.